Oh, heck yeah. That's absolutely part of grief, just in general. Part of grief is, well, there's a lot to it. There's so many feelings and emotions that come along with grief, right? Anger, missing somebody, loneliness, anxiety, all kinds of stuff. But guilt, for some reason, and I don't know if I have a really good thought as to why, but guilt seems to be one of those feelings that's kind of packaged in with grief, right? And I hear this, yeah, from the mostly the students I work with, they, especially the ones recently that have lost family members, that's been happening. That's been coming up a lot. Grief's been coming up a lot. They feel guilt. And one thing I like to try to tease out is with the people I'm working with, is it guilt or is it something else? Because guilt is I did something wrong and now I feel bad for it. That's guilt, right? Shame is there's something wrong with me and I feel defective or I feel broken or I feel dirty or whatever, right? So guilt and shame are different. Shame is not. I think shame doesn't really come up as a part of guilt or as part of grief, from what I'm hearing. Guilt does though, and so I like to tease out: is it guilt you're feeling like you did something wrong, or is it something else? And it may be a something else. So we've already, like I've already said, guilt when it comes to, at least in my opinion, when it comes to like feeling guilt from a breakup, feeling guilt from losing somebody and still being alive, feeling guilt from I should have done this or I should have done that, whatever that looks like. Guilt to me is I did something wrong and now I feel bad. Just to put it like very black and white general terms, I feel bad. I've harmed someone, I know it, I feel it, and now I feel guilt. To me, those all kind of go together. So if we say I'm feeling guilt, is it I did do something wrong and I feel bad for it and I know I've impacted you in a negative way? Or is it another feeling? That's kind of just something we all have to reflect on. Is it guilt or is it something else? And I can't answer that for anybody of what that something else may be. Yeah, I gotta interrupt myself just for a moment here to do this, basic YouTube thing. There is a like button right below the player. I would appreciate it if you took just a moment, tap that like button if you're liking this. There is also a subscribe button if you want to see more of what I'm putting out in the future. And comments are absolutely always appreciated. I'd love to know what you thought about this video. Yeah, it's extremely important. Like it's so important, and I spend actually a pretty good chunk of time on this when I do therapy. When I'm in my role as a therapist, I do a lot of time where people will say they'll try and name a feeling, and I just have to kind of trust my understanding of the context of the situation and my sort of empathetic reactions to it. And I have to ask, like, so is that the right word? And it's not about like questioning them, making them doubt. It's more about like it's so important to have clarity to be able to name and own what we feel. It brings a sense of control. I think it helps to reduce the intensity of the feeling, or to at least say like recently I had a session with a student, and she was saying that she felt guilt over a breakup she had just gone through, right? And so she said I felt guilt, and I was like, but is that the right word? And we kind of went through that same process of when I hear guilt, that means you did something wrong. And I asked her, did you do something wrong? And she goes, no, I didn't. I wasn't in the relationship anymore, and we broke up. And so she's like, no, I didn't do anything wrong. So no guilt. And she agreed with me that the definition of guilt was I did something wrong, I feel bad, and now I feel guilt. And she's like, no, that doesn't really work. So that's not the feeling that I'm trying to name. And so it's so important to have the right feeling word, the right word to name the feeling, right? And we ended up sort of teasing apart the context of the feeling that she was trying to name. And what it ended up being was she was sort of expressing that I broke up and I feel clean about that. I feel good. I don't have any bad feelings. That was the best move for me. I'm focusing on school and my own self-development. And she said, but the person I broke up with, they are doing this, that, and the other thing. And it's sort of like convoluting my feelings. And when they say this, I feel this way. And we ended up sort of discovering that really what was happening is there's a lot of manipulative sort of emotional tactics, enmeshment, and codependency kind of flavorish sort of stuff going on. So she's like, my breakup, I feel okay about what I did. I didn't do anything wrong, and I'm fine about that. But when the person I broke up with, when they do this, that, and the other thing, then I feel this sort of reaction to it of not empathy, but just sort of like, oh, I got to make them feel better. And so there's other feelings that get mixed in there, and it's flat out, it can be manipulative. And Reese, what you said earlier was generational trauma. And generational trauma and manipulation, emotional enmeshment, codependency, I mean, lack of boundaries, um, guilt trips, all the shaming, all these things go, I mean, they're very closely hand in hand. They go together. And so when we say, I feel guilt about whatever it is, the question is, did you do something wrong or not? And you have to and that's really kind of what it boils down to. That's part of it. And if the answer is no, it's like, okay, well, maybe there's something else that we're feeling then. And maybe it does come down to, I feel some sort of twisty, convoluted, icky, dirty kind of thing, whatever it is. Just in general, is that your true emotion, or is that stemming from somebody else's distortions or potential manipulations, boundary crossing, however you want to put that? And I definitely don't want to put, ideas in people's minds of like, yeah, they're all being manipulative and that's why you feel this way. No. But you have to kind of take stock of the guilt that I'm feeling. Is that the right word? Is that what I'm feeling? Did I do something wrong? And if not, okay, there is a feeling here. If I wasn't in this context of this person saying this thing or acting this way or giving me this ultimatum, whatever it is, if this context wasn't happening, would I still have this feeling? Or does the feeling I have stem from, you know what I mean? So the situation with that student I was talking about, that's what I asked her was, if your ex-partner wasn't doing all these things, would you have this sort of convoluted guilt kind of feeling? And she goes, no, I wouldn't. That's not my true feeling. I mean, it is her true feeling. It is her feeling. She does, right. But it also wouldn't be there if these other things weren't happening. So if your parent wasn't doing shaming and blaming and guilt trips and manipulations and distorting truths and all these things, if these things weren't happening, would you still feel this way? So it's really important to tease those out.